Hi everyone, welcome to the Property Finance Podcast, and today I want to talk about 5 property lies that you've been sold. We're going to do a bit of myth busting now. So myth number 1 is that you need a 25% deposit. So this is actually both false in both directions, in the sense of sometimes, depending on the deal that you're doing, you'll actually need a 40% deposit. So if you're doing, for example, a refurb deal where there's no element of creativity, it's literally just a straightforward BRR deal, and you're retaining the interest and everything else, then actually you're probably going to need closer to a 40% deposit. And flipping it around, you don't always need that full 25% deposit because you might be purchasing below market value, you might be doing title splitting, there could be an element of joint venturing with the landowner or the property owner, some assisted sales stuff, some exchange with delay completion. You get what I mean. There's a lot of different creative strategies that you could use to reduce that 25% down. So that's myth number 1, busted, actually, ironically, in both directions. Myth number 2 is that you need a mortgage to buy a property. That's not always the case because you might do a lease option, for example. So if you do a lease option, you maybe lease it for 5 years, you get to the end of it, you've had capital appreciation, you've done some works to it, you've increased the value, and then you go onto a bridge against that market value, therefore sort of getting rid of that deposit requirement and that need for a mortgage to begin with, and then you refinance onto a mortgage shortly after purchasing. You don't need a mortgage in the sense of you could get a bridging loan instead, you could get a development loan instead. You don't always need to go down the route of a buy-to-let mortgage or a resi mortgage. The other thing as well is that you might have investors as well. So you may just use pure private investment. You might use a SIP, a SAS, which are both forms of pensions. There's all these different ways in which you can finance a property without having to use a straightforward mortgage. So that's myth number 2, busted. Myth number 3 is that bridging is only for desperate people. And what I mean by that is people tend to sort of come forward and they say, oh, well, you only get bridging loans if you're desperate, if you found something you want to buy and yours hasn't sold yet, or if you've bought at auction and didn't have the money and all that kind of thing. It's not only for desperate people. Bridging, I would say, is actually one of the most underrated tools to have within your sort of financing arsenal, because bridging finance allows you to bridge against market value as opposed to purchase price. It allows you to purchase properties which are unmortgageable through sort of the standard routes. And more importantly as well, it just allows you to move quickly. So there's a lot of people who have money tied up in ISAs, or they might have money in stocks and shares and things like that. And it takes a bit of time to get it out sometimes. And bridging finance actually can move just as quick as that. I mean, the quickest deal we've ever done is 4 working days. I don't think we will ever beat that because that was bloody quick from start to finish. But it's not just for desperate people. I would really say bridging is something that you have to consider. If you can get a deal that will allow those costs to be swallowed up within it, you've got to be considering bridging. And then myth number 4 is that you have to buy in cash to get a good deal. Now, I'm not going to debunk this myth that much because actually I do believe that cash is always going to be king on all these things because you don't have interest costs and all that kind of thing. However, not many people buy in their own cash. So it could be investor cash, all that kind of thing. But I don't think you necessarily need to be saying purchasing in cash is going to get you the best deal, because actually you've got creative financing strategies, you've got deferred payments, you've got vendor finance, you've got all these other things which can create far better deals for you. I think debunking this myth for property investors and developers, yes, if you are a vendor, someone buying in cash is always going to be best, probably for you, 99.9% of the times. So I would say kind of a caveat to that is you're always going to make your money on the purchase. So not necessarily about buying in cash or how you purchase, but getting the property for a good price is always where all your profit is going to be made. And then myth number 5 is that investors only work with pros. I can tell you now, some of the people I've seen raise investment, definitely not pros. We have seen some interesting characters raise money and lose money. They don't only work with just the pros, just like the trainers and all that kind of. I mean, I wouldn't even say I'd necessarily put trainers in that category of pros, but it's not just that. So private investors will work with someone if they are clear, if they're credible, if they've got an exit plan, if they know their money's going to be secure. It's all about asset-based finance. If the deal stacks up, if the property works, if there's a clear exit plan from that property, the investor is going to want to invest. Because why wouldn't you? If there's a good return to be made and you know your money's safe, why wouldn't you invest? So that one's a very easy one to debunk because, I mean, I've seen it firsthand that private investors don't only invest in just pros or trainers, etc. They will really look for those people who have got clear plans, clear exit plans, and are sort of likable and trustworthy. So yeah, absolutely, that one can be debunked straight away. So hopefully it was helpful. Just a really quick episode just to touch on a few myths that I've seen recently on social media and people speaking to me. And they were just the 5. I thought, you know what, let's just do a really quick episode. Let's just get rid of them as quick as possible, because I think there's a lot of people who create their own barriers to entry. So there's a lot of people who are getting started in property investment, and actually they don't need sort of barriers. They sort of create their own, and seeing things like this just helps them to create those barriers. So hopefully that helps some people who are new to property investing sort of have that bit of confidence of, okay, not everything that I see on social media is true. So hopefully that was helpful. Thank you very much for listening. I'll catch you on the next one.